Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
You've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Welcome back to Clicks and Bricks. Today I have Paul Compeau with us with BridgeWise College Planning. How are you doing today, Paul?
Doing wonderful. Happy to be here, Ken.
Thank you for joining us. We're really excited. Lots of people are going through this journey. Wild time in the universe and in the country and the world today in 2025. You know, lots of kids are going into college and they're scared. They don't know what to do, and super interested to see what you're bringing to the table. I've not talked to a whole lot of college planners. This is new territory for me, so I'm pretty excited. Paul, before we jump into the questions, can you just tell us a little about who you are and what possessed you to get into a wild career like college planning?
Yeah. So I started out in college. I started out actually as an accounting major and realized that is way too boring and I don't want to do debits and credits the rest of my life. So I switched over into finance and management, both of which I use on a daily basis now. And then I decided I could go and I could do corporate finance and help some company, make a little bit more money and kind of make budgets and stuff like that. And that seemed a little more boring, kind of like accounting is. So I thought, let's do personal finance. So I started my internship, started my career in personal finance, seen a good amount of success. What I love about personal finance is I get to work with people. I get to meet with great people every day who actually get to help change their lives, and I get to crunch some numbers every once in a while. So I love both sides of that, and I have a wonderful team here around me to help with both sides of that. But pretty quickly in the financial services, what I realized is most financial advisors are awesome at growing money that you give them for retirement and long-term money, but they're terrible about planning for how you're going to buy your next car or how you're going to pay for your kids' college, right? And that's where most financial advisors out there, most investment advisors or whoever you're talking to, they're more than happy to take your money and charge a percentage or however they make money and grow that. And some of them are very good at doing that. But what I noticed is nobody's actually helping these parents to figure out how they're going to pay for college, what is the right path for their students, and how do they pay for it, right? And that's where I developed my niche, is in that college planning space. So what I quickly did was develop a lot of expertise, developed a lot of things. So I haven't paid for college yet. I don't know if you can see the picture behind me. My kids are 8 and 11 years old, so I still have a few years to go before I pay out of my pocket. But I've done it over 500 times with the clients that we serve. So I get to bring all of that expertise, all of that experience to people who are going through this for their very first time. So I like to say to most new clients, I don't know your numbers yet, but I've probably seen them at least a few dozen times before, right? And that's amazing for them because I get to share in a educational podcast like this or wherever else, great things that some clients have done that I get to share, or maybe some pitfalls that other clients ran into, usually before they met me, that they ran into that they want everybody to avoid as well. So I love doing community workshops and I love doing podcasts and anything else I can do to help people understand how to do better and how to make their lives better and ultimately help their kids. Because if we can get that college piece right, whether that's the path for them or not, if we get that education piece right in a student's life, for a lot of families, for every future family that becomes, right, for each individual who goes off to college, a lot of times that's a $500,000 or $1 million swing if we get that right. You know what I mean? They're going to make that much more over their lifetime. They're going to pay that much less for college. They're going to make sure things are on the right path. So when we do college planning, I have the huge advantage of having an amazing counseling team who meets with the students to make sure they're on the right path, and an amazing financial planning group here who make sure that they can grow the finances in a way that they can actually pay for college. So I could give you 100 examples. We just had somebody in our office yesterday who came in, they took advantage of a college readiness breakthrough session, which I'm sure we can put in the show notes, but people can take advantage of a college readiness breakthrough session with no charge for anybody listening to the podcast. That's at bridgewisecp.com. When they do that, this family came in, they learned about our company, they decided to enroll in our services. And when they enrolled in our services, within about 2 weeks, we had a financial meeting with them, 2-hour meeting. By the end of that meeting, they went from, we have no clue how we're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for our 3 kids' college, to, hey, if we do A, B, C, and D, college is paid for and we're on to retirement. And that's such an amazing thing, just based on that experience and based on my team being able to put those things together for those families. So we love families that want to pay less for college. We love families that, a lot of times when we meet them, they have high school students, right? So we all know we should have started planning for college when we found out we were pregnant, but there was other stuff going on, right? And it's the same thing in business, right? Future problems are future problems. Let's take care of today's problems first, right? And that's where those future problems keep, all of a sudden, they're current problems, right? So we expect that to happen. That's going to happen over time. So when we meet the parents of a middle school or a high school parent, they're looking to solve that problem pretty quickly. So that's where we bring in the expertise, not just on how are you going to pay the bill, but how do you pay less?
Yeah, it's wild. My daughter, and I don't talk about my daughter very often, but she is in her first year of college.
Okay.
It's painful. Like, emotionally, she's like, we don't live together anymore, and it's all this money, and she's in the dorm, and yeah, it's a big life transition. So, and we did not plan for it at all. I would say,
Right.
it was kind of like, okay, here it is, got to write the check, and it was out the door. So I think this is a really cool service that you're offering, and it's very valuable to a lot of people on the planet. I'm positive of that. I love what you've done. You've taken you started in your business, kind of finance. Okay, I didn't like that. Okay, what about this? And you kind of just kept massaging until you landed on, you were able to niche down into this particular niche.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to you is, and this is important for anybody out there that thinks they have an idea that they want to start doing something, who gave you permission to start just doing that for this particular community?
Yeah, so nobody is the answer. I mean, obviously there's financial licenses and things like that you need to offer certain products and whatever else. But yeah, nobody says you have to work with this type of person or that type of person or whatever else. But it's a lot of understanding. So, but when I was looking for a niche, part of it is, if I was kind of starting out and thinking, what do I want to go into? I'd be thinking about probably 3 different things. One is, and I guess I'll play it off with you, Ken. If you're going to start a restaurant, what's the number one thing you need?
A clear mind and not open a restaurant. But
Well, a lot of people would say, you know, you need the best location, or you need the best food, or you need the great atmosphere and everything like that. And all of that matters, right? But the number one thing is, you need hungry people, right? You can be the worst hot dog stand in the world sitting on a street corner, but if there's a million hungry people right there that day, you're going to do great business, right? So you don't need the atmosphere, you don't need the building, you need the people, right? So you want to serve somebody who actually has a problem that they want you to solve, right? So for college planning, what we discovered, Ken, and I don't want to use you as the bad example, but people like you who didn't save up for college, that are figuring it out at the last minute, they have a big need. So that's done very well for us. And we love being able to serve those people and solve that problem for them. The next thing that I would be thinking about if we're choosing a niche is it profitable? Obviously, can we charge a fee for it? Are they willing to pay money to solve that hunger or that problem they have? And then the third thing is that I love, and not most people don't think about, is it a renewing source of new people, right? And that's what we found, is there's a new class of seniors that are going off to college every single year. There's a new class of freshmen in high school who need good financial plans every single year. There's people having babies who want to make college plans every single year, right? So there's always a refresh of that market that we can reapproach new people and more new people and more new people. So even if we pick a small geographic area to niche down to, or anything like that, even in a small geographic area, that's every single year, there's more people to talk to and more people to talk to and more people to talk to. So that's a lot of what I love
Absolutely.
from a business perspective in our industry, is there's always new people that we can help that really need our help.
A renewable demand
Mhm.
is a phenomenal service or product offering. I like to think, I equate that to diapers and batteries.
Yep.
You're always going to sell diapers. You're always going to sell batteries. Those are things that are always going to move off the shelf. And I love that so much. I would say I agree with everything that you said, but I've also made money doing things that I hate, and it hurts my soul. So, I still believe that the number one thing that you have to make sure is that you love doing what you're doing, because you're going to have to do it when it sucks, and you're going to have to do it at the highest possible levels. With all that being said, Paul, what gave you the confidence to double down on this niche? I'm sure it wasn't um, it wasn't cheap to put all the assets together to go after this specific niche, right?
Mhm.
It's a commitment, it's planning, it's material, training, lots of things, right? So what gave you the confidence? And I know you said all the things that you saw there, but we all know that there's lots of businesses that make money. What gave you that confidence to take the leap?
So I've always been entrepreneurial mindset. Like even during high school, I'm working at a restaurant. Like I viewed that as, hey, I'm working for my tips. You know what I mean? Uh, that's exactly kind of how my brain is wired and how I like doing things. So I always believe that if we solve enough problems, we'll make enough money, right? Or solve big enough problems for people, we'll make even more money. So how do you
Yeah,
have the confidence to do it? You start small and you copy somebody else is what I would do. So you see somebody else doing something successful, you say, you know what, I can't do all of that right now, but I could do this piece of it. Right. The other thing, and especially for younger folks, but even anyone who wants to kind of get into something, the first 5 years are to learn. Right. So if I was talking to my kids when they're in their 20s, it's not about how much money. Your goal is not to be a millionaire by 30 or in the next 5 or 10 years. Right. The goal is to make sure that you're getting the knowledge you need that you can build on for the rest of your career. Right. So I'm almost 40 now. In a normal person's working career, most people last till about 65. I think I'll last a lot longer. We'll see. But I only have 25 years left. Right. The learning I did when I was 20 or 21 has a 40 or 50-year payoff, whereas the work I do now only has a 20 or 30-year payoff. Right. So the more work you can put in early, I coach my kids' soccer teams, and I love putting in every practice. I put in a great life lesson because I want good people in the world in the future. And I always say you choose your hard, right? You can either have it hard now or you can have it hard later, right? If you put it in the extra hours, you put in the work, you put in the learning, the earlier you do that, the more it's going to pay off and pay those dividends every year for the rest of your life. That's what I would be looking at. So the focus in the beginning is, how do I learn more? How do I understand more? How do I get the skills that I need in order to be great at this thing? For a lot of people, that means you go shadow somebody who maybe they're not even paying you, but they're really good at what they do. And I bet you if you go shadow them for a year, you're going to learn a lot more than trying to do it on your own, right? Even if you don't get paid at all, right? As long as you can survive, you have another job, you can survive. Dip into that next thing and see how it works, and see if you can take 2 hours a week to go focus on that other thing, work for next to nothing if that's what it takes to get the knowledge and get the skills. And you have the internet now. Like, we can learn anything pretty quick, but there's nothing like shadowing somebody who's doing it every single day. And people are willing to do that. That's the amazing thing about humanity is, we care so much about each other. Like, you can literally just call up somebody who's doing it and ask, if say, hey, I want to learn more and be good at what you're doing, but I know I'm not there yet. Do you mind if I bring coffee to your office and give me a half an hour? You know what I mean?
I have
Nine
at
times
least
out
two
of 10, they're going to
kids.
say yes.
Yeah. I've got at least two kids at all times that are under that I'm mentoring in some kind of business adventure or something. And we love doing it. Like, it gives us so much joy. So if you're a kid watching and you see a business owner out there doing something, or doesn't even matter if you just know a business owner and you were like have some idea that you want to try to execute, email them, call them, ask them for help, right? They will throw their arm around you and help you. I promise you, if you're putting in effort to start a business and you got a local entrepreneur around, call them, email them. They will be the smartest thing you've ever done in your life. I think probably it's insane the help that you can get by doing that. Paul, you've carved out a niche in college planning. What problem are families consistently underestimating, and how do they fix it fast?
Yeah, so the biggest thing they do is that they how do I say it? They don't understand that the college pricing model is completely broken, right? That the way that college gets paid for, the way that the whole system works is not for them, right? So when you go off to college and you get the financial aid offers, they're going to say, well, good job, you filled in the FAFSA form. You get minimal financial aid. Mom and dad can take out $40,000 of loans, right? And that's what a financial aid offer is from universities. So when you hear universities saying their average financial aid package is a certain amount of dollars, they call loans financial aid. And that's not free money, right? It might help you get off to college, but it just compounds the problem with interest, right? And that's where most people don't realize that when we look at the financial aid for college, and Ken, you might know this, how many banks in the world want to loan money to a student that's an 18-year-old going off to college?
None.
None. So none of them do, right? So the only loans that are available in the kid's name are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year from the federal government. The rest of that tuition goes on mom and dad, or the kid having the money to pay for it, and most of the kids don't have the money to pay for it. So when we look at that picture, the student loan crisis that we hear about in the news and is definitely a huge issue right now. There's more student loans out there than there is car loans, more than credit card loans, more than any other type of consumer debt out there. Those college loans, when you think about those, think about people in their 50s and 60s, pre-retirement and early retirement years, as much as you do the kids in their 20s who can't pay down those debts, right? So that's where we had a family got referred into us right after their kids went to school. We're up here in Michigan. It was a local client. One kid went to University of Michigan in Dearborn. One went to Michigan State University, both in-state public universities, not terribly expensive. They had, when they graduated, they used their 520s to pay first. They used as much cash flow as they can. But when their kids were graduated and they met me, they were paying $2,300 per month in parent loans for their kids' college education. And they had high income. They were, $400,000 a year or so they could afford that. But that's all from a financial planning perspective. That's all money that should be going to the retirement. So if we don't figure out that problem ahead of time, all that happens is we compound that problem. And most people in the middle class, they're not going to be able to afford that on top of their mortgage, on top of all their bill payments, on top of their car payment, on top of everything else they have going on. They can't afford, $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month extra. So that's where, when we look at the cost of college, it's kind of like buying an airline ticket. People on the plane did not pay the same price as you, right? And it's the same thing with a college education. There's going to be sitting in the same lecture hall, but the person on their left and the right might have paid a completely different price from what your family ended up paying. And we want the families to have the lowest bill possible. And that comes from an extensive knowledge of what colleges do well for that type of family in financial aid. And it also comes from a great knowledge of the financial aid formulas of how to set up a family's finances ahead of time to achieve more in financial aid. So, Ken, when you were looking at different colleges, I'm sure you had friends who said, don't even bother with financial aid. We make too much money. Don't even worry about it, right? Have you heard something like that before?
I am so not the normal case.
Okay.
I'm so far from the normal case that it's absurd to talk about.
Okay. And a lot of families hear that, though, and they say, well, we're not going to apply. But what they didn't realize is maybe that person picked the wrong college, right? That didn't have financial aid for their family. There might have been another great option that was a fit, that was a good fit. Or they didn't know the financial aid formulas and how to leverage them in their favor before they filled in all of the documentation. So that's what we love to be able to do, is help on that side. But then we also couple that with great counseling. So we have a full counseling team on our team to help the student, because it doesn't just have to be a financial fit. And you know this from going through the process. As important as the financial fit is the curriculum. We want the right academic fit and the
Yeah.
right culture, right? If we don't have the culture fit, then they'll want to leave after a year.
Yeah, I kind of want to get into. I understand everything where you're going. I think we understand your business and where all those things are. I've got a couple questions for you, and I want to challenge you a little. Not you, but the system as a whole.
Sure.
My college was 100% paid for, any school that I wanted to go to, and I've dropped out of some of the best colleges in the country. You said that people don't understand the school financial system. Do you think that it's wrong? Like, do you think maybe we're escalating the 4-year education path for teachers and things like that maybe a little too quickly and front loading the capital expense of education and trying to rush that through?
All right, so I'll go philosophical a little with you, Ken, if that if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's where I want to go, because
I
the
believe
bells and whistles, you help people get into college. Okay, we understand that, right? But we're business people. We're trying to change the world, and we're in a really wild time right now, and people are paying for colleges, and I'm scratching my head on why the hell would you even do that?
Right. So in most fields, you're going to do much better with the college education. All the statistics, even with recent graduates, bear out the college education on average, not for every student, but on average does still work better than most other paths, right? Are there other paths that also work well? 100%. Is there a big bias that smart kids go to college? Yes, right? The ones that have the good grades get into the good colleges. The ones that graduate from the good college already were smart before they got there. They're probably going to do fine getting a job and making money, no matter if they went to college or not. So I'm with you on that. But it does help, right? And it does prove that you went through the system, you did something that was difficult, you worked through the annoying system, and you finished. And that's what
Yeah,
unfortunately a lot of employers are looking for. So
is it
I'll
what they're
take
going to be looking for in 5 years from now? Somebody that can toe the line and execute. I mean, is that what they're going to be looking for later?
Yeah, so I'm terrible at predicting the future. I'm not
Okay.
100% on what happened in the past, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
So I
everybody's going to
100%
want
agree with
employees.
education, secondary education for doctors, lawyers, highly skilled labor, teachers, like stuff that needs a certificate. But there's a lot of people out there, like the general consensus has been go to college, regardless of what you're going to do for, at least you have a college education, but it's quickly
Yep.
outpacing. And
Ken,
I
let me
think,
ask you this, because I'll share
Yeah.
a personal experience from my business. I don't care if somebody has a college degree or not when I hire them.
I'll not
Okay?
hire them because they have a college degree.
So here's where I might disagree. I'm looking for the skills that we need to succeed at the job that we're trying to hire for. One of the main
Follow the
skills we
rules.
look for in almost every job we hire is communication, right? And that's where communication, the better you can communicate, the better it conveys what you're thinking. The more that you can, and that's why, like in high school and college, essays are so important, is it's teaching you how to think, right? It's teaching you how to research, how to get a problem and solve it and then convey it in a way that someone else understands it. And those are real skills that a lot of colleges, I'm not saying every student gets that, but a lot of colleges are trying to teach. When we do that written assessment where we're asking open-ended questions and trying to do that, we care about the answers to the question, but 80% of what I'm looking for is, are you a good communicator? Are you a good writer? Based on that, very few people without a college education get an interview. And to date, I've never hired somebody that didn't have a bachelor's degree, at least most of them with masters, because of their ability to think and write and communicate.
Okay.
So that's just one person's experience. I don't have a huge team here. I have 4 or 5 employees. We've hired, maybe 15 people over all the years that I'm doing it. But that's just been my experience.
Yeah. For programmers, we like self-taught. I like people that are self-taught and that can get there, because we live in an industry that's cutting edge, and the education system has been 10 years behind what I've been doing my entire life. Right.
100%.
That's for the entrepreneurship path. It's the college, the structure of college isn't always the best structure. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, I highly suggest taking some accounting classes, some legal classes.
Yeah. But you're 100% right, Ken. What I learned in my finance degree in college is not what I needed for the real world, even in finance, right?
What I learned is I don't want to do it.
And I don't want to bash my industry too much, but I did a certified financial planner. It's 6 master's level courses. I took them at NYU, like great university. I had to pass all those, plus the huge tests to get the certified financial planner. It spent about maybe half an hour learning about college education, and all we had to do was calculate the time value of money. Is if you invested at 7%, here's how much you should save each month, right? And that's the only thing they really taught about it, right? And
It's a big gap.
Yeah.
I mean, the gap that you're filling is big. Like, there's no doubt about it. And there's, very little help from, you would think at 7th grade, they would start talking about, hey, how are we going to finance? And, what are we going to do here? And have programs for the kids, but they just don't.
Well, and unfortunately, that falls on like the counselors at the school, and the counselors have the American School Counselor Association says there's 408 students for every counselor out there. Like there's just not enough, and they're dealing with all the trouble kids, not with the A students who are going off to college. So they do some group stuff and they do what they can, but they stay far away from the financial side of things for sure.
That's such a weird dichotomy inside of our world that the troubled kids get the most help and the kids that excel get ignored the most.
Yep, that's so I'll go back to the education piece and I got off on a rabbit trail. I apologize. I believe that education is the parents' responsibility. So I think it's my responsibility to make sure that my kids are educated. It's my choice to pay or bring in whatever help I think is necessary for my kids.
We disagree there. 100%, but that's okay. That is 100% okay. I had free college. I could go anywhere I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I went to WashU for a year, dropped out. I went to Webster for 3 days and dropped out. I did not care about it at all. Not one single lick. My daughter's paying. I bought her first year and she's paying for everything after that and she loves it. But I did pay for her first year.
And anything that the parents help the kids with, that's generous.
Yeah, I really tried to talk her out of going to college actively, and she wants to be a school teacher for some reason. So I will support her in that way. For a junior year family starting from scratch, what's your 90-day action plan to maximize need-based and merit aid? Yeah, so starting from junior year, we already missed out on some of the income strategies that we could do. So from the beginning of sophomore year to the end of the junior year is the income that's going to count on your first financial aid form. So ideally, we would have met you just a little bit earlier. But if we meet somebody as a junior, there's still moves that we can make to make sure we're trying to get more in financial aid, and more so making sure the student is on the right path. So ideally by that point, they've already started exploring careers. They've already started doing some campus visits, things like that. They're getting to know the college system. And so if we meet somebody with a junior, first thing we need to do is get together on the financial side. That's kind of a separate train, if you think of it that way, than the college side. So we need to figure out, can mom and dad help pay? How much can mom and dad help pay? How can they achieve more in financial aid? And if they could get enough financial aid, do they really have to pay much, right? So we look at that piece of things, how that's going to work. And then we start on the college side, and that's probably where the urgency is how do we expand that school list to an appropriate number? Usually by junior year, we want that number of, there's on how you measure it, there's 6,000 to 9,000 different universities in America right now. We want that whittled down to 20 around their junior year. By the end of their junior year, the summer after the junior year, we usually want to be applying between 6 and 10 different universities that are all a great culture fit. They're all a great curriculum fit, and they're all a perfect cost fit. So if we can get those three things on all 8 or 10 of those schools, then that's where we want to apply. So that's kind of what we look for and want to get there as soon as possible. So obviously juniors, we're focused on the ACT and SAT. Higher the scores, whether they say they're test optional or not, the higher the scores, the more financial aid you get. So we need good scores on those. Tell the kids they need to be doing the studying for those. We want those prep courses going. We need the education piece going. And then we also need to be looking at campus visits, what schools fit, what career paths are the number one. And we are dealing with teenagers, so we do a couple backup career paths and make sure wherever they're going to college, they might make a change, but we don't want to change schools because then we need more years, right? So that's where, and Ken, I don't know your whole story, but if somebody had sat down with you during high school and maybe talked through some of those things, maybe you don't drop out of the couple colleges, right? Maybe you would have still, maybe you wouldn't have gone at all. And that's one of the options that our counselors are exploring with the students is what career is the right career path for them. And we use a lot of psychological, and I'm not the expert in this area because we have the people who are awesome. I'm not qualified to tell a 16-year-old what they should be doing with their life. But they're working with, as soon as like 13, 14 years old, we're looking for psychological markers in their personality and their brain that match people who are happy in that career path in their 40s and 50s. So that's a lot of what we're looking for. When we do that, we start with that career path. Does that career path require college? And you're absolutely right, Ken. Not every career path requires college, right? And that's the best answer we can give somebody who's doing college planning, if that is the answer, is mom and dad, don't pay for college. It's not worth it for your kid, right? Now, a lot of them do end up looking at different universities that do have a career path that the college path makes sense for.
And then we start looking at what schools excel at that for the curriculum fit, which ones are a culture fit, and then which ones are a cost fit. Combine all of that together, and we decide here's where we should be applying at these 6, 8, 10 different perfect fit schools.
Yeah. Now there's a path of college that I find very interesting. That I think serves a very big purpose. Like there's the kid that gets out of high school and they know what they want to do. They want to be doctor, lawyer, teacher, whatever, right? They have certificates. They got to go through school. I understand that mentality, right? The government needs this certificate to do this thing. That's the path that you have to take. But there's also the kid that, just wants to go be an electrician. There's the kid that doesn't know what they want to do. And I am an advocate of just take the associates and kick rocks for 2 years and taste as many things in life that you can to try to figure out what I might like to do in life. Is there specific financial planning that kid should be thinking about? The wander, and I honestly believe that's probably most of our planet.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll start with the college planning aspect of it. Is why don't we try to figure that out early in high school?
Because you don't know. You're never gonna. You would have never nailed me down. Not in a million years. And trying to would have just backfired on you.
Could be. But you ended up finding your path. And I guess I'm a big believer that if you have the right counseling and you have the right conversations early on, some people could have found that right path earlier, right?
Okay. So
The
you're
other
just trying
thing
to
is
find them earlier and direct them into the right path for them.
For sure. The second thing I'll say, though, is people are wrong on the path sometimes, right? You went down a few wrong paths, you realized they're wrong for you, and then you went to a different path, right? That is normal in life. That is expected in life, right?
Well, I think that should be celebrated more early, right? I think the anxiety of these kids thinking that I got to choose what I need to do now, and this is the path that I'm on, and creating that rut, I think is a dangerous path for a lot of
See,
people.
I view it a little bit different, Ken. So if we're looking at, and I'll simplify it, there's 100 different paths the kid could go on, right? I think picking a path and walking down that path is one of the best things they can do. Is walk down the path and decide if it was the right one or not. You can't, if you're standing here and you haven't walked down one of the paths, you can't figure out if it was the right one or not yet.
Yeah. That context, I think, needs to be amplified more. Walk down that path until it's no longer comfortable for you. As soon as it starts getting uncomfortable, get off that path and go somewhere else. I see so many people in life stuck in a path and they just run through it. They're like, well, I don't know what else to do. This is what I went to school for. And it's a sunk cost. And people have a really hard time separating themselves from their sunk cost of, I paid for a film degree, but now I'm doing education. Like that's, people identify with that. And when you identify with something, I mean, it feels like suicide to get rid of that identity.
Sure. And I 100% agree.
It really scares me to instill an identity into a young person of a pathway that they might have to do for 50 years. And that's all I'm saying. And I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, the expectation is we don't always pick the right path from the get-go. If I could have picked college planning as my niche from the first day I started in this career, that would have been fantastic, right?
Yeah.
If I didn't pick accounting first as my first degree, that would have been awesome, right? I could maybe finish a little bit earlier and get onto my career a little bit earlier or whatever it is. But that's not how life works, right? I do think I might phrase it just a little bit different than you can, though, because you said when it gets uncomfortable, leave the path. And I think that's where some of the biggest growth works. And a lot of times that's when you need to push through. So I would say when you realize it's not the right path for you, that's when you switch paths, because we expect uncomfortableness, we expect pain, we expect rough spots. That doesn't mean that's not the right path in every case. Sometimes, yeah, it does mean it's not the right path. But not every uncomfortableness means it's the wrong path. So yeah, we want to switch to the right path. When we realize this is not the right path, pick a different one and see if that one is, right?
Yes. And I one of the things that I do is I own a boxing school, and you probably don't know that about me. So I think that the uncomfortableness, if boxing is an uncomfortable sport, getting punched in the face is uncomfortable. But if you love doing it, those things are not uncomfortable to you. Those are the things that you enjoy. Yeah. Soul search deep. Right. If there's something wrong, fix it and get out, because that's a place that you should not be. It should be joy. You should enjoy the pain that you get from your passion is enjoyable pain, and it's never uncomfortable. Walk us through a real-time example or real example where strategic school selection, not just top choice chasing, saved a family 5 figures or more. And
Yeah,
that
I'll
might
give
be
you
a
the
tough one.
example. We had a family got referred to us, came in for a college readiness breakthrough session. They signed on for our services. And as we started working with them, they were originally aiming for some great state schools in the state of Ohio. That's where they're from. They thought in-state is probably going to be their best bet. I'm a huge Michigan football fan, so go blue. But they were looking at the state schools around the state of Ohio. Um, got into some of them. Their price tag was in that $27,000 to $30,000 range per year. They weren't getting anything in financial aid because those schools they were applying at just didn't have a ton of money for the family like them. After understanding the financial aid formulas, they were able to apply at some additional schools. So she ended up at a school called Ohio Northern. They're a religious family, so that's a religious school as well. She fits in great there. She's in the band. She's doing research with a professor. She's just an absolute great cultural fit. But they saved their net price was about $15,000 per year at Ohio Northern because we knew how they do with financial aid for that type of student, how to leverage the financial aid formulas with their income and assets. Her dad's an engineer. Her mom is a eye doctor. I don't know what that word is. Optician, something like that. Eye doctor. So they have a reasonable income, but we're still able to get financial aid for those middle class families because that's how the system works, right? So if we know how the system works, we know what schools are going to do well. I think she graduates next year. Just absolutely wonderful kid. Wants to be an eye doctor as well, follow her mom's footsteps. But they got an absolute steal as far as how much financial aid they got and how little they ended up having to pay because of the work that we prepared them for ahead of time.
Okay. I like this line of thought. So they were going to choose a school close to home, state school, because they thought that was cheaper.
Mhm.
Went to you, and then you were able to open up the playing field to more schools, better schools, find her a better fit. So she was able to get a better fit school at a less expensive price.
Right. And that's where a lot of those schools that look like they're 2 or 3 times as much as your local state school end up being less because of how the financial aid works. So if you look at the endowment at certain schools, especially the private universities, they have huge endowments and generally have a much smaller number of students to spread it between, right? So if you start looking at the most of the state universities, and there's a few big name universities that do have great endowments, University of Michigan, UCLA, a number of public universities do have awesome endowments. But generally, most of the public universities just spread that endowment so thin that they're giving it to 10, 20, 30,000 students, right? They don't have enough for that many students to meet a lot of the financial aid that's needed. And that's where a lot of families can do significantly better at the private universities. Most middle class families can go to the private university for about the same price or less expensive, and they're better at graduating kids. So when you look at 6-year graduation rates at most public universities is somewhere between 40 and 60%. That means about half of people are graduating within 6 years for a 4-year bachelor's degree, right? So the public or the private universities, they're going to have a 4-year graduation rate. Not all of them, but most of them are above 80%, which means that most of their kids are finishing in 4 years or less. And that's a huge swing in an education. So not only does it cost however 30, 40, $50,000 for a year of college, so mom and dad might be coming up with an extra 60 grand for those extra 2 years, or the kid is who somebody is, but they're also not going into their field, not going down the next step of that path for an extra 2 years, right? So a lot of schools, and it depends on what you go into, might be making 50, 60, 80, sometimes even $100,000 per year when you get out of college. You don't have that extra 2 years of income. So just from a dollar standpoint, that's $250,000 that's missing from that family that they could have had if they were on the right path to get from the get-go.
Wonderful. You save money, families a lot of money,
Mhm.
potentially, or help their child get into the right school. I think you're always trying to save them money. Is always an underlining factor. How do you get paid?
Yeah, so we're a fee-based company. We charge between $3,000 and $7,000 per student for our services. Don't let that scare anyone away from coming and asking us questions in a college readiness breakthrough session. But yeah, we don't work for a bank. We don't work for a brokerage company. We're unlike most financial advisors, we're not here to sell you a different mutual fund that might make you 1% more return, right? We're here to actually solve your problems and work for the families that we serve. So we don't work for the colleges, we don't work for the government, we don't work for anybody other than the students and families that we serve. So we love that relationship, but we're also really, really picky on who we sign on. So that's part of the reason. There's two reasons we have almost all 5-star reviews. Is one of the reasons is our team is awesome. Like we have assembled just an amazing group of people here who have the exact skills that our clients need, and an immense amount of experience in everything that we're doing for the student, everything we're doing for the parent. So that's the number one reason we have good reviews. But close second is for people who come in for a college readiness breakthrough session, we usually only have about 3 out of every 10 people that actually end up having the opportunity to work with us. So we are very picky. We're looking for an 8 to 10 times multiple on the fee that we would charge that family for the work that they want us to do. We're not going to sign you on unless we see tremendous value in the future of that relationship. And that leads to, and all of our entrepreneurs know this, I don't want any extra headaches, right? I don't want people being grumpy that they paid me a few $1,000s and they didn't get any value out of it, right? I want people who love my company, who love our organization, that want to tell all their friends about us. And that's all I want to work with every day, right? So I always look at my schedule and I tell my team this, I tell my clients this, is I want people on that schedule that I am happy to see on that schedule that, hey, Johnson family's coming in tomorrow. I love talking to them. That's what I want my life to be. That's what I want my team's life to be. So that's why we're so picky on who we sign on.
That is phenomenal advice for any business owner out there, entrepreneur. When you start in your business, not knowing your customers is very common. Taking on business, if you create a product or service, you take business because you got to pay the bills, you got to pay the rent, you got to keep the lights on. You get to a point where you can start being more exclusive about who you're working with. And that's really a big part of why we do what we do, so that we can work with the kind of people that we want to work with. It's really, really important. And I'm so glad that you brought that point up, is to not accept every client that walks in the door. And that's possible to do. And if you can do that, what you'll do is you'll serve your value propped customer, your key avatar, so much better. It's really cool. And not, unfortunately, it can be a little dangerous to not accept customers, but if it's part of your standard operating procedure, then you can generally justify it very easily. And especially when it's consultative, like what you're doing, you're going to be spending a lot of time together. Paul, if somebody's looking to do this, where are they at in life? Who can you help them? Obviously, anybody with kids going to school, right? But who is if they're watching the show and like, holy crap, that is me right now, I need to call Paul. Who is that person?
Yeah, so you're sitting at the table, your kids started getting college brochures, they're thinking about college, you're looking at what you knew they were going to probably go to college because they were smart kids, so you saved up a little bit of money, but then life happened, right? So you probably have a car payment or two, you might have some a home equity line of credit you had to put a project on, those kind of things. You're saving in your 401k, you're doing all the right financial decisions you knew how to make. The $140,000 you're facing, or $300,000 or $400,000 per kid that you need to pay for college, isn't something that you think you can figure out on your own. That's when somebody should call us. We're going to be able to have a tremendous impact on most of those families. You have a good income, but most months it's gone, right? Those types of families we can absolutely have a major impact on. Somebody who makes good financial decisions when they know the right financial decisions to make, people who care about their kids and getting that education. Absolutely, we want to get the kids on the right path. We want mom and dad to not sacrifice themselves financially in order to do that.
Paul, how do they get in contact with you? How do they get started?
Yeah, so you can go on to Google or whatever search you want to use, put in BridgeWise College Planning. On there is going to be a link to the website. You click on the website. I like the Google aspect because then you see all our 5-star ratings. You can find us on socials as well, BridgeWise College Planning. But as you go on to the different things, link through to our website. That'll give you the opportunity to click onto a college readiness breakthrough session that is absolutely free, Ken, for all of your listeners. Anyone who wants to take advantage of that can click on that and can absolutely come in and let us look at your situation, let us understand, help us educate you on what you're looking at as far as what your bill might be and what options you might have to do things better than how you're doing it right now. I know this is true, Ken. You've probably said this to your students 100 times. Is T. Moon Pickens said, "A fool with a plan is better than a genius with none," right? And if we're looking at this problem that we need to pay this college bill and we want to make sure our kids on the right path, getting that together, the sooner you act, the earlier you do that, the better results are going to be for your family. So definitely take action. Go to bridgewisecp.com or Google BridgeWise College Planning. Click on the button for the college readiness breakthrough session, and we'd love to see if you're somebody we can help. And if not, I promise we'll tell you what your financial aid is going to look at like at a couple different schools that you choose, and we'll calculate your financial aid index. We'll look at all of those different factors and point you in the right direction if you're not somebody we can help.
It's a scary time, folks. Your kids are leaving your house. They're going off to school. It's costing a lot of money. The world's an uncertain place. So if this is the path that you're choosing, having somebody on your side that understands the landscape, Henry Ford said it best: "I don't have to be a genius. I can hire the genius next to me." So it's an important skill set to have. And if you're a business owner, it's one that you need to exercise as frequently as possible. Paul, as we wrap up our show, Diary of a CEO is my favorite podcast, and Steven has his guest write a question, and he sells the deck of cards, and I bought them. So are you ready for your question?
I'd love it.
This question comes from Seth Rogen. You have one last piece of work to do. What is that piece of work and why?
One last piece of work to do. What is that one last piece of work and why? For me, it's probably educating my kids, giving them the life lessons, the things that they need to succeed in life. So that job is never done completely, but I don't know, my kids are 8 and 11. I figure I'm about not halfway through the time, but halfway done with the education piece. So the work I put in early, I think is very good, but there's a lot more that needs to happen. So yeah, that's the last work I would do if that's all I could do.
All right. I do not know what the last piece of work that I would work on. I think it would be a letter to future humanity, asking them to keep curating our planet and keep it in good, healthy bounds, because I think it's important. I don't know why. If you're watching and you have some kind of grand idea of what your last piece of work is, share it in the details. And if you're not working on it right now, you should get to work on it. That's it for today, folks. Thank you a lot, Paul, for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Ken.